Hello. It's been a minute since I have seen you folks and since you've seen me. In my chronology, at least. I mean, I guess you could watch any video anytime. So you could have been watching one of my videos right now. But anyway, I was having some technical difficulties in the last live, so I just ended up basically deleting it. It's private. Um, don't know why, but Mercury is retrograde, and maybe Prophecy 3 said this is not an appropriate medium. I don't appreciate you. Those are interesting. Okay. All right. So Venus stations direct on the anniversary of my favorite fictional couple, Bob and Linda Belcher. 9-3. 9 is divisible by 3. So as Venus goes direct, the day after, as Venus stations direct, the day after, Jupiter stations retrograde, and then 11 days later, Mercury stations direct. So there's this interesting energy of the inner planets being direct while the outer and in between planets are retrograde. And when I think about that, it makes me think of, if you've ever seen in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the fight between Korra and Azula. That's her name, right? Sokka and Korra. Her name is Korra, right? I'm not misremembering her name. No, Korra is the new Avatar. Oh my gosh, what is her name? How did that Katara? How did I forget Katara? When oh, I'm gonna have to reply later. The fight between Katara and Sokka. Yeah, Katara and Azula, when she like freezes Azula, and Azula is frozen in the ice, but she uses her water bending to like move around. So it feels like that, like while everything is stationary, or while the world is doing whatever the world is doing, it's harnessing one's personal willpower to continue flowing and moving in whatever direction one wants. Um, that's my initial interpretation, at the very least, or when I just like think about it, this Venus retrograde period has been interesting. Y'all know that every now and then I like to just come on and talk about where I am in life, / how I've been doing, feeling in these energies, I guess. And it feels like Venus retrograde for me, and my Chiron is in Leo, so that was a part and piece and factor. But Venus retrograde and my Venus is in Aries. So it was like sextiling. No, it was trining my Venus, sextiling my Jupiter, conjuncting my Chiron. Also, I guess trining my North Node, sextiling my South Node, and opposing my Saturn, because my Saturn is in Aquarius. But anyway, um, it seems like this Venus retrograde for me has been like reaching, like I have my own grievances with the way that I've approached relationship in the past, by like kind of overcommitting, being too available, overgiving, um, by not considering myself enough uh, during certain points in my life. And again, like for the time, I didn't really have anything going on in particular. So like I was open. I was like, no matter where I go, things are going to work out. So the where doesn't really matter to me. The when will happen when it's supposed to happen. And the what I'll discover, because there are many, many, many paths to the future. and I could take a fair number of them. So, like, at the time, it was what it was. The only difference is, or the key, excuse me, the key difference is that now I'm at a point where I have more direction, where there's somewhere I want to go. There's some things I want to do. And I found a brilliant avenue, one that was better than I could have anticipated, and one that continues to wax better and better and better the more I find out. Uh, but now that I see that and I know that I want that, I'm a lot less available for anything and everything. So that's a key difference. That is, a very important piece and part of the equation. But in general, it's like I found myself in a place of peace. And there are things about my life that I absolutely love. And I'm not willing to risk or jeopardize my peace. I'm not willing to overgive or overcommit. There's like a whole bunch of stuff that I used to do that I'm not willing to do anymore. Like if it doesn't add to my life, it for gosh darn sure isn't about to start taking away from it. And it's a point and position in my life that I've never been in before. Also, I've spent the upper majority of my life actively not doing things that would make me like not working through my problems or handling and dealing and facing and addressing things, which is why I've like intentionally avoided relationship for as long as I have. Because I knew that I would be toxic. I knew that I would be absolute garbage in a relationship because of all of the things that I wasn't dealing with within myself, and I didn't need or want someone to project that onto. You know what I mean? Because in my mind, it's like if I love someone, then I want to be able to bring my best to them. Or at the very least, like I don't want to be more of a burden and more of a hassle than I need to be because of things that, again, I know that I'm not dealing with, I'm not handling, I'm not addressing because I'm like committed to like isolationism. Where does it make sense to try to bring somebody else into my life? It doesn't. And then after I started my healing journey, I learned that there was still some like anxiety around relationships that I had. And then there was my phase of like healing those. And in my phase of healing those, of course, I needed to go through opportunities to like see how deep my capacity is and opportunities to like open up and expand and heal the heart and do all this other stuff. So again, it made sense for where I was at the time. But now that I am where I am now, there are things that don't make sense. And I'm not about the nonsense right now. So Venus retrograde was me very much so being not about the nonsense to the point where like again, like I never would have thought that I'd feel the way that I felt about prioritizing me and my peace more than like wanting to like share life with somebody. It got to the point where I was like, I think I'd be okay if I never romantically was involved with anybody because I just love where I am. And again, like I never ever thought that that would be me. But now that the Venus retrograde is like ending, hey Holly, how you doing? Now that enjoy your mommy son time. Um, Now that the Venus retrograde is ending, I feel like I'm like being encouraged to like soften back up, you know, to not be so resistant at the very least. Um, and honestly, it's a little bit more of a struggle than I thought it would be. Well, maybe not a struggle because the point isn't to go back to where and how I was before the retrograde. The point isn't for me to unlearn all of the things that I've learned and to go back to not prioritizing myself. The point is to find balance, right? Mars is going to be sextiling Venus, excuse me, or at least generally. I don't know exact degrees and I'm not going to look. But Mars is going to be sextiling Venus from Libra. as she stations direct in Leo. And nothing's in Gemini. I don't think anything's in Gemini for that other side of the sextile. And nothing is in Aquarius, technically, because Pluto is in Capricorn. So, anyway. But yeah, that's been my take on what Venus retrograde. Because again, like as it's concluding, if I look at where I am now and what I can feel the universe encouraging me a little bit more strongly than I would like. But also at the same time, I don't want to miss out on anything that I want either. So it's a hard, like, playing the balance on this one. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But that's what it feels like for me. Excuse me, what is Mercury retrograde doing? I honestly don't know what it's doing in my personal life. I feel like when Mercury retrograded water signs, there were behaviors that I had, or there were areas in my life where I could be more compassionate and where I could be more understanding and a little bit more patient. And so it would be like, hey, like, because it would come to me and I was like, fine, I'll be more understanding, I'll be more compassionate and a little bit more patient. And when I reached the point where I would like do that, something would happen. And it was like, oh, okay. So it was like, first was the lesson, then it was the opportunity to put it into play. Like I had a roommate that I was like, the roommate was fine, but the situation was terrible. And my patience had evaporated. But when Mercury was retrograding, I'm pretty sure it was Scorpio at that time. It was just like, hey, like, you can be a little bit more understanding. You can be a little bit more compassionate. Dude's been vulnerable with you about, some stuff. So keep that in mind. And I was like, okay, fine. And so I got a little softer. And then his grandma passed. And so I was like, oh, wow. Okay. With another one, it was like there was some stuff. I think that was when Mercury was retrograding Cancer. And I guess that makes sense for what it was. But there was some stuff from my childhood that I was hanging on to in a way that like empowered me for a long time. But after I started healing, basically, I didn't need that as a source of strength anymore. It came time to heal that. And then, so that's one that I was like, kind of like, not necessarily struggling with, but something happened that flared it up. And then I was super petty. And all of the ways that I felt deserved. And it was like, that isn't right. Again, it was that like, you don't have to pull strength from this anymore. Like you can let that part of you be healed. You can let that go. And I did. And I cried because of course I cried. And then after I did that, I got an opportunity to like meet face to face. And I was able to show up in a way and I was able to have compassion in the moment because I had went ahead and let it go. But Mercury and signs that haven't been water, either like, I don't know. Mercury and water though was like very that. I guess this would be, but Mercury just went retrograde. So I guess in the pre-shadow of Mercury retrograde was that gateway opportunity. So now that Mercury is retrograde, there is a little bit of an extended opportunity that I am considering. The timing of it works in one way. There's some other stuff that is a little interesting, but things could potentially work out to the point where I get to almost expedite, because that's my word for the year, where I get to expedite a certain process, potentially. One that, due to the Venus retrograde, actually, that I'm a lot more keen on taking. It's a bird. Yeah, so we'll see. Hello, Peter. Excuse me. Hey, Peter, how you doing? Um, but yeah, so that's been, and then Mars is direct. Mars is direct. You know, which makes sense, I guess, in a certain type of way. Um, yeah, so I have the Energy Oracle cards because I saw them the last time I went digging for cards and I want to use them. I'm gonna pull a card for like one for the inner planets, one for the outer planets. I also found the 3 shot glasses that I want to use for the pick a prophecy. And so I kind of want to do like a pick a vessel and then a pick a prophecy. But then I also want to do like one with each. So like, and then I was like, well, how would I do that? I mean, I guess I could do it either way I want, any way I want to. I could either pre-record and splice together all the videos, because it would be 6 parts, right? Or would it be 9? No, it would be 9, because there are 3 different cups, and in each cup would be 3 different liquids, like the different combinations of cup and prophecy. But then I don't know. Anyway, I've been going through it in my mind how I want to do it. I might not do it. I might. But yeah, that'll be coming at some point. Kind of would have thought I'd have it done by now, but I guess I'm not surprised that it isn't. But yeah, so I'm gonna pick one card for the inner planets retrograde, one for the outer planets. For the purpose of this video, Venus, Mercury, and Mars are inner planets, and everything outside of that is an outer planet. I know Jupiter and Saturn kind of like straddle the line sometimes because they're visible to the naked eye, and they're like fast enough that their transits are kind of significant. Like all transits, to some degree, are significant. But like when you get into Pluto, Pluto is in the same sign for how long? Like there are so many people that will have Pluto and Neptune and Uranus in the same sign. Like if you're born within what 20 to 30 years of someone else, you're probably going to have Pluto in the same sign, unless it like transited like what it's doing now between Aquarius and Capricorn. Um, but like born within 5 to 10 years, probably definitely the same sign. But again, unless it's transiting, unless it's like ingressing or whatever. Uranus, Neptune, also planets that take a while, so they'll be in the similar sign to people roughly your age. Um, Venus, Mars, Mercury, those are the ones, especially Mercury. The moon, the sun, of course. But Jupiter really sits in between because I think that's like a 12-year cycle. And then Saturn is what, 28 to 30. So, anyway, for the purpose of this video, Mercury, Venus, and Mars are inner, everything else is outer. I'm going to do one before, one now, and one moving forward. So that's 6 cards altogether. And I kind of wanted to use 2 different tarot decks that like only I have the before and after tarot, and then I have the Astro Matrix tarot because I gifted the Weaver tarot, so I don't have 2 versions of that deck. I have a regular sized and the pocket size, both Wild Unknown and Witches tarot, I believe. I don't even think I've used the. I think I've used it once. The pocket size Witches tarot. Um, I could also do Lenormand because I have a few Lenormand decks, but I'm just gonna use the Energy Oracle cards because that's what I've been feeling. So Drop down in the comments below what your Venus retrograde has been like. Kidding. I mean, you can. No, I guess no one's going to stop you. Excuse me, but yeah. Ooh. 1428. And 28 is twice 14 at the cut. Carrying connections and victory. All right. Ooh, who was that? I ain't even ready. Walking away. 27 with anxiety at the bottom of the deck. And then Archangel Michael, first chakra. Door to personal healing and happiness under root chakra. So because there's been some personal healing and happiness in the root chakra, because the root is strong enough, there's some walking away that can be done without like being at least stalled out due to anxiety. Very like not cheaty from The Good Place, because I'm rewatching The Good Place. So how am I going to do this? All right, I'm going to shuffle this 2 more times. I'm going to cut it. Top of the deck will be inner planets. Bottom of the deck will be outer. We'll cut it there. So for before, or for in the past, we have 5th chakra Archangel Gabriel for the inner planets and blossoming abundance on the outer planets. For now, we have happy family on the inner planets, which is another 4, and anxiety on the other planets. And moving forward, we have attachment on the inner planets and first chakra Archangel Michael on the outer planets. Bottom of the deck is that door to personal healing and happiness. Just looking inside the door to see if I see anything. Excuse me. This is interesting. It's not quite what I had expected. Here it is. I'm going to get a Witch's Tarot card to clarify each of these. And I'm just going to go, excuse me, from top to bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5th chakra Archangel Gabriel is the throat for the inner planets before the moment they go direct. So while the inner planets retrograde, it's only Mercury and Venus because Mars has been direct throughout this whole thing. So I guess it's interesting because both Mercury, Venus, and Mars can affect communication, but mostly so Venus and Mercury. Mercury because it is communication, Venus because it is like the heart, and a lot of, well, I guess it depends if we're people who communicate matters of the heart or if we don't, if we shut down, because both are true. And then Mars would be like things that are communicated out of like anger, out of frustration, or out of a desire to move something, right? Mars almost being a little bit more self-serving, or I mean, Mars can be emotional in ways similar to Venus, but differently motivated sometimes. Anyway, so it's Gabriel. While they were retrograde, which is about speaking truth. And so maybe there was a truth of things while Mercury and Venus were retrograde. And I guess like if we would have waited for those retrogrades to be over, let's get one more. Who are you? Ooh, it flipped down, face down. Love that. New bottom of the deck is the Healer of the Ages. 51, which is the mirror to 15, which is the mirror to the devil. I was thinking the Tower, but it's the mirror to the devil. Well, 15 could be something different in this deck. I'm not sure. Because there's that truth there, but I know it's a fairly popular belief of you shouldn't have certain conversations or whatever during a Mercury retrograde or a Venus retrograde or whatever is relevant retrograde, because it may not go the way that you want it, or the chances of miscommunication are higher, or emotions are going to be running high and it can tend to an argument or something like that. So I'm almost feeling like if there were truths that weren't communicated, then it would lead to this attachment. If there are truths that it doesn't matter. Because I was like, oh, maybe this attachment is if things weren't communicated, then it leads to this attachment. If you wait to say how you really feel or what you really think about something rather than doing it when it arises with an intention to do it in a way that's, with doing it mindfully, I guess, versus not saying anything. The card that came out for if you would have said it, it's all tied up. They're both a 5. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 is 5, or 5 plus 0 is 5. One is attachment. One is all tied up. Literally the same energy. The energy of now, though. So this was a 31, 39. This is a 39-4. No, that's a 39-3. Why was I thinking that was 4? That's a 39-3. And then we have a 4, and then we have a 5. Oh, 3, 4, 5. Ah, look at that. Because now it's the happy family. Now, this is the moment where the planets, so for the inner planets, this is where they all station as a unit of inner planets direct. And then them being direct or prograde and moving forward is the third card. Or would that have been, anyway, yeah. So it's happy family now. This attachment is interesting. Because attachment could be that we've already set, in this happy family point in time, in this happy family period, as everything is stationing direct, that now is the time to put everything right. So if there were things that weren't said, now would be the time to say it. If there are things that were said, but maybe they weren't communicated in the best way, now would be the time to clarify. Now would be the time to set things straight. Because it's almost between then and now, that's going to be what the final outcome is. The final outcome is going to have energies that carry forward what we do or what we did, which makes sense, right? If you communicate something with someone who at the very least listens, then moving forward, they'll know, right? Let's say that there's something that someone does that upsets you, and you communicated that. And now this person cares about you enough to not upset you. And moving forward, that's going to be the outcome. The outcome is attached to whatever was done in this attachment and in the all tied up. But it's if you didn't say anything, but you pretended that it didn't bother you or affect you, then it's that's what the outcome is going to be. Because we don't know what we don't know, right? That's why communication is so important. Now, with the outer planets, we have blossoming abundance, which feels like the outer planets were setting things up beautifully. like, because the abundance is blossoming, it feels like an outpouring of opportunity, or noticing that there were a lot of opportunity. Maybe there was a lot of momentum in something, but at the moment that they all station retrograde, at the moment that the last planet stations retrograde, we have anxiety. So it's like it could have been a windfall season. This is 398. 39 is the non-American day or non-American date system, the day, month, year. No, the month, day, year instead of the day, month, year, where it's like 9-3 instead of 3-9, basically. That could also be like March 9th. March 9th is Aries. September 9th is Virgo. Between Aries and Virgo seasons, which is right before we head into Libra season. So that is the period of longer days or nights if you're in the southern hemisphere, because at the equinox they switch. Well, at the equinox they're equal, but in between the in between the vernal and autumnal equinox, the days are the longest and they peak at the solstice. And in between the autumnal and vernal equinox, the nights are the longest and they peak at the winter solstice. Anyway, it's the time period of longest day. But anyway, again, so this blossoming abundance feels like things were like moving, or there was an idea or an indicator from the external that things were moving. And then it feels like that momentum slows down. Either that momentum slows down and that would cause anxiety in the present moment, or at the time that Jupiter stations retrograde. And I guess that makes sense for the way that Jupiter is like communicated or talked about. Like Jupiter is the expander, it's the planet of good luck and good fortune. And so when it goes retrograde, all your lucks run out. Or that may be like the feeling when it starts to station retrograde, because it's like Wheel of Fortune energy spinning one way and then it slowly stops, it grinds to a halt. But with Michael being the card moving forward, this one is the most, I feel like it could be similar to attachment and all tied up because it is the root chakra. And the root could be about groundedness. It's about our foundations. And so, I was going to say because it's Archangel Michael, we could be supported in that, or it could just be talking about the root. It makes me think of the card in the Disology deck, which is maximizing or minimizing limitation or support. Look to the root, because the root will tell if we are in a position to be harmonious, if we're going to listen, or if we're in a position of discordance. It's up to us to make the most out of a situation or to make the least from it, basically. And with the root being here, it's almost sort of mimicking, or it's coming through as the same. So again, moving forward, it's kind of what we make of everything as the outer planets station retrograde and as they retrograde, while all of the inner planets are moving. So if we look to our external world to be a validator, then we may think that because this opportunity isn't coming or that opportunity isn't coming, then it means whatever it means. And so we slow down on, or we get discouraged, and we make choices and decisions. Just like we make choices and decisions if we don't take the halting of the external world personally. Right. It's almost like it would be a time, because the inner planets are direct It's like it's a time to drive the chariot rather than just be like driven by the turning of the wheel of life. Because it's that wheel of life that, you know, through tarot would be grinding to a halt and then turning retrograde as Jupiter retrogrades on the 4th, which is like 48 hours from now, roughly. All right. But that's just first impressions. Ooh, 2 cards. Am I going to take this in reverse? Yes, but it may not be. Oh, the Empress is a 3. 8 of Wands in reverse and the Empress. Oh, yeah. So that's why there's this question of if this is in reverse or if it's upright, because it's clarifying Archangel Gabriel 5th chakra and whether or not that communication happened. But either way, we got the 8 of Wands in reverse with the Empress. Now for happy family, I'll take you. Oh, the Hermit, because it's now. The Hermit and a face down card for attachment and all tied up. Oof. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay. All of the cards flew over to the now. The first card flew over. Basically, they're all, both 2 are face down. The first one landed face down on top of the Hermit. The second one, well, it's bridging the Hermit and anxiety. The second one is laying on top of the Hermit, and the second face down card for the present, now happy family moment. And then the Hanged Man came out face up, bridging the second card face down that's clarifying, that fell on top of the second card face down, and anxiety. So blossoming abundance, oh gosh, landed on top of the Healer of Ages, face down. Anxiety, one landed face down on top of anxiety. The other one is landed on top of, like, this is the card that landed face down on top of blossoming abundance. It landed like that, pointing towards anxiety. So I guess I'll leave you there. I'm just trying to like remember. It's fine. Maybe I'll remember. I'll leave them where they are. And then, like, did a card just fly out? Maybe not. Oh, it did now. There we go. First chakra, Archangel Michael. Bottom of the deck is a Page of Wands. Maybe. There you go. There he is, Page of Wands. Oh, there's a cat with the Page of Wands. How's that for a fool? So off to the right of first chakra, Archangel Michael, in the direction that he isn't facing, is the Ten of Swords. It was like this. And then the second card landed face down, touching the Ten of Swords. And it is the Three of Cups. 10 of Swords, 3 of Cups, misery loves company. Or it's the company that we keep. Well, it's both. Partially like misery loves company. I think it's also partially like the 10 of Swords is, it carries with it the potential for us to move forward in a way that is different than who and how we were before. It's very like ego death type of energy. But again, like it can also be things that used to hold us back and weigh us down no longer do so because of the Ten of Swords. And with that, the Three of Cups, it's almost like we will attract to us like company. So if you are on the rebirth side of death and rebirth, you will attract or find yourself in the company of more folks who are themselves or who are also reborn. Or it could be the company that misery loves to keep. I'm sort of going like backwards. So on top of anxiety is the Knight of Wands, and the second card that landed on top of the card that's clarifying blossoming abundance is the Two of Swords. So this is almost literally like, should I stay or should I go? Because one is seen like sitting still, the other one is shown with like depicting movement. The card that Ten of Wands. So the Two of Swords fell on top of the Ten of Wands, pointing over to this Knight of Wands. Almost like that. And the Ten of Wands is on top of blossoming abundance. So maybe previously in the outer planets retrograde cycle, or as like leading up to Jupiter being the last planet, maybe there were a lot of things that were happening, or a lot of opportunities that were kind of sort of being presented to us in life, but they didn't necessarily come easy. Because the Ten of Wands is here, it feels like it would have required something of us. Or it would have required like a kind of release. I guess it's interesting that the outer planets start with the Ten of Wands and end with the Ten of Swords. And in between is the Knight of Wands and the Two of Swords. Now, this one is a little bit more ecliptic than, because we don't see the sun, but it's so bright on this side of the card that, I'm assuming that it's there. So we see the sun and the moon sharing the same sky. And so maybe that is an energy of like making sense of some things. And again, this is clarifying anxiety. So now I feel like that gives a new context on that Ten of Swords. So now-ish and moving forward, it's about partially getting comfortable with the unknown, partially developing enough intuitive sense and trust that we can move forward regardless of, because like it feels like this Two of Swords, it's almost carrying, like the Two of Swords is seeking information from the High Priestess. Like the Two of Swords is trying to get some kind of clarity that it does not have before it moves forward, or before it makes a certain choice or decision to move forward. Or this could also be like a conflict within one's own ambitions. And then it ends at the Ten of Swords and the Three of Cups. So it's like, if now prompts us to handle, face, tackle, or address something that we've been carrying with us for a while, maybe unknowingly, because of the Two of Swords being blindfolded. It's almost like we see the signs of the thing, but we may not necessarily know what the thing is. We may not, and the root is here, so maybe the root of it will be exposed. But it's like knowing, it's like discovering that you have a response or a certain pattern response in certain situations, but not knowing why. Or it's like knowing that something upsets you, but not knowing why you feel so upset. And because of that, it almost carries like an unknown, it's just like an unknown source of a trauma. And maybe, again, not even necessarily a trauma, just like an unknown source of some kind of patterning or habit or conditioning. If it's worked through with that Ten of Swords, and if it's put to bed and moved past, then it feels like it opens up to something new. And that is the point of magnetism and attraction for this Three of Cups. But if not, then that point of magnetism and attraction can be like more experiences as those outer planets are retrograding to try to highlight and illuminate that for you. We see Athena's owl sitting in the tree. And Athena is an energy that is like Mars because they are both associated with war. This man. So now we go back up to attachment and all tied. Oh, look, attachment and all tied up, and then the hangman came out. Interesting. I get it. Haha. LOL. 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 We got the shadow side, and we have the Queen of Pentacles. Queen of Pentacles fell on top of the Hermit. Shadow side fell on top of the card that's face down. And then we have the Hangman. So just like because there's a pentacle that the crow is dangling, this is interesting to have like shadow side, devil energy, and the pentacle here, and then we see them both in this card right here. Also, this is 15, the mirror to the 51 that is the healer of the ages, still at the bottom of the energy oracle cards. So yeah, because of the Hanged Man, it feels like it's carrying through that message of like the outcome is going to, it's almost like the outcome will naturally follow whatever the process has been up until that point. Like it's reading like there aren't necessarily going to be any sudden, magical, miraculous, drastic changes besides the ones that are internally motivated, of course. Like any of that will be internally motivated. And in that case, it would be like the external is finally catching up to the internal, or because something has been done internally, it projects out, magnetizes, catches, and attracts the like. So again, like moving forward, it's very similar in the inner planets and outer planets. And it being like a almost self-motivated process. Which again is that like we drive the chariot rather than being drawn by the will of life. So the shadow side and the Queen of Pentacles is interesting. Oh, look, there's a dog. The Page of Wands had a cat. This Queen of Pentacles has a dog. Shout out to the pets. But the dog being loyalty on top of the Queen of Pentacles, again, it's kind of sort of that whatever we've put into the situation is what we're going to get out of it. The shadow side, to me, reads like an illusion, but it's one that's like really convincing. But if we like, because it's like a projection, it's reading like a projection hologram. That's what it is. It's reading like a hologram, like a really convincing hologram, but a hologram nonetheless. So if you approach it, like you would see that there is no substance to it. You would see that it can't affect you. And the Queen of Pentacles is all about nurturing things to life. I think this is why This makes attachment and all tied up really interesting, because if it's almost like if the attachment is strong enough, something moving forward might require something of us. And the happy family is the now for the inner planets, effectively the now for the inner planets. And it's almost like there could have been things in the Mercury and Venus retrogrades that were highlighted and illuminated to us as not necessarily conducive to like a happy, healthy relationship, and not even like romantic, just like relationship in general, including to like job and work and career and our relationship with money and like value. Um, but it's almost like there may have been habits or patterns or behaviors or ways of thinking that we had that again wasn't conducive to a happy and healthy relationship. Those things could have come up in that retrograde, and it's how we move forward that it's like, because the Queen of Pentacles is a nurturer, there's an emphasis on like what she gives and how she tends towards the growth of something. And with the shadow side here, it feels like it impairs her ability to nurture whatever it is so that it can grow in the best conditions to produce the like ripest, healthiest, maximum pleasurability fruit or whatever. Now, with the happy family, we have the Hermit and also the Six of Swords. So we have, again, almost two. Wow, that's this now moment. Like almost these conflicting energies. One energy that is sort of still, one energy that is in movement. And the Hermit depicts a movement in a journeying sense, but it's all like internal. The Hermit is externally still. But these together, it's almost like, was it the Ten of Swords and the Three of Cups, or was it both of them? Moving forward, where it's like it's the internal, the inside being manifested externally. Because it's like the more that the Hermit delves and explores within the self, the more progress it can make outside. Like these two are connected, their efforts are mirrored. And then again, we have the Empress with that Eight of Wands in reverse for Archangel Gabriel. Now it feels like the Mercury and Venus retrogrades could have been showing us things that we believe to be true that we didn't necessarily know we believed to be true, if that makes sense. It's almost like somebody comes into your life and they do something in a way that is different to the way that you always do it. But it shows you, number one, that things could be done in a different way. Number two, that you never thought to even question the way that you do things or did things. And number three, like, again, that things can just be done in a different way. But it's like, it's almost like, what did I assume to be true in order for me to believe that there was only this way, or that there were only a certain type of way to do this? So it feels like that Archangel Gabriel clarification plays down into the Archangel Michael clarification a little bit with the Ten of Swords and the Three of Cups. Because it's an opportunity to then begin doing things in a different way, or to begin utilizing a truth or an expanded understanding of the truth in a different way. I don't have any. When I said understanding, I was like, I feel like there's a card that says understanding that's here. Now, there is the Owl of Athena, which carries wisdom. And I feel like I've seen wisdom. Or maybe I was just talking about understanding. Oh, maybe that's when I was talking about the me. I was like the understanding and compassion and stuff and blah, 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 blah. I think the Eight of Wands in reverse and the Empress could also be our relationship with ourselves. It could be like internally directed communication rather than externally directed, like going in towards the Empress rather than out from the Empress, right? It's like this would be, how do I show it? Like these would be coming into the Empress. Those would be like going out from the Empress or whatever. Sometimes I read the cards like that. It feels like either way, or maybe it's because Mars is still direct, or Mars has been direct this whole time. Because it's like in order for the hangman to get that pentacle, he's going to have to like do a crunch or scream real loud so that the crow, I guess screaming really loud would be communicating that truth. Archangel Gabriel, that the retrogrades in Mercury and Venus taught to get the crow to like drop the pentacle in surprise, and then he'll have to like snatch it on its way down for gravity to take over. Or like he'll have to do a crunch or a like, whatever that is where you to grab it. He'll have to bring his arms up to grab that pentacle. I almost wonder if the Two of Swords that is clarifying the anxiety in the present moment of the outer planets retrograde. Well, I forgot what I thought what it might be, but it's like, yeah, it's similar. Things that we don't think of as possible. And so maybe like that's why we haven't moved on it. The Ten of Swords could also be, because swords can represent the mind and thinking, it could be like thinking outside of the box. It's freed itself of constraints that we may have had in the past. And the Six of Swords is here as well, which could be like moving the energy towards the border of our understanding and then like crossing that threshold. And maybe that's what the shadow side is. It's the personification of limitation. Interesting. So, just in general, it feels like there's this momentum switch between internal and external. And as the external may be slowing down, it's an opportunity for us to Scorpio. I was like, who had this energy? I read for somebody recently and it had an energy like this. It was Scorpio and the four steps of transformation. Um, and it was like when I think it was the elucidation or the clarification for Scorpio. I think it was the elucidation because I think Rod did the first step. And it was like, or it may have been the transformation, honestly. I don't know. It was in Scorpio. But it was that like Scorpio is able to go around and to see what something or someone needs and then to provide. It was like Scorpio had the perfect palette. And there were people who were chefs that had questions about Like my dish is missing something. What is it missing? And with Scorpio's perfect palette, they could tell what it needed. But like that's what the Queen of Wands is. It feels like it's up to the Queen of Wands to nurture something, but she either has to combat herself or perceptions of others or projections from others. But it's not projections from others in the way that other people project on the Queen of Pentacles. It's projections from others in the way that the Queen of Pentacles thinks that other people project onto her. Because there's a difference. There's a difference between like within ourselves thinking that we know how someone feels about us or how someone views us or thinks about us and like what they actually think. Right? Like when we project onto someone else and that like we project that someone else has a projection of us rather than it being a true and legitimate projection that they have. Because it's almost like if you talk to that person, they'd be like, I don't think that at all. So that's some self stuff. It's because of how we feel about ourselves that we assume that other people must feel a certain type of way about us. Past or present, here or then, or now. But yeah, it just feels like it's a time for us to contribute potentially to moving things forward. Again, inner planets direct, outer planets retrograde. So I'm gonna get final cards. My throat is getting dry and raspy. I'm gonna do these first, and then I want to do the energy oracle cards last. I feel like there was something else that I was going to pull for or on or around. I love how it returned the same energy. Oh yeah, and again, the bottom of the deck is the Healer of the Ages, which is the mirror to that shadow side. Also, it's already in the deck. Darn it. The reason why the shadow side looks like a hologram to me is because there's a light that stands behind the shadow side, and it feels like a projection of the light. And then when I was looking at this Healer of the Ages, it feels like it's on the other side. Like this is the pathway entryway that was blocked by that shadow side. Okay. All right. From the Witch's Tarot. I shuffle like this now. Eight of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, Queen of Swords and the Eight of Pentacles. So 4, I said 8. Queen of Swords and the 4 of Pentacles. This is an interesting combination. Because it looks like the Queen of Swords is requesting something that the 4 of Pentacles is not giving. Like she's holding her hand out to receive an offering, and the 4 of Pentacles is like, no. I don't think so. But with the Eight of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck, it feels like it gives it a context of like something. The Four of Pentacles feels like something isn't ready yet. And that's why he isn't offering it to the Queen of Swords. Not because he's stingy or selfish, but it's like it's a gift for a queen, so you want it to be perfect. And nothing's ever perfect. So it's this like it's almost like it'll never be the right time, but because it'll never be the right time, it's always the right time. Because it's like there's never going to be that moment where we feel 100% ready for whatever. And so it makes any moment as good as the next moment to go ahead with whatever. But at the same time, it makes me think of that metaphor, question mark, analogy, whatever, where it's like, you have something like you're a child and you have something that is hurting you, harming you, or something that is like in tatters. And the divine is asking you to hand it over so that they can hand you something better, or so they could hand you something that's not going to harm you, or so they can fix it, repair it if you don't want new. But it's that attachment to it. It's that like not even going to give it up. But also like there's the gold where his heart is. And that's what like really flipped this for me. Because it makes me think of when I use the Earth Gaia Tarot. What's your name? Dreams of Gaia. When I use the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. And there was the golden heart and the Ace of Water, and then in the Two of Water was that gold, and then in between the 9 and 10 of Wands and the vice versa, no, in the in-between tarot was that gold. It was all that golden energy that started in the heart. It's like that's what's behind this pentacle. Is it hiding it from the world? What is it doing with this? I don't know. But I read it as like the Four of Pentacles is channeling the energy of his heart into this to turn it gold. And it's that feeling of like it's not ready yet to present because he's still working on it. Like he's polishing it in this one. Because if, the Queen of Cups, you can give her something that's halfway done and she'll appreciate the thought and the sentiment. The Queen of Pentacles will appreciate it for what it is. The Queen of Wands and the Queen of Swords, it feels like the Queen of Swords, and the Queen of Wands, they compete for that queen that you don't want to give something like half-baked to. The Queen of Wands, maybe because she'll act in disgust and make you feel bad about yourself. The Queen of Swords, because she might cut your head off. She's like, really, this is what you think I'm worth? Are you trying to offend and insult me? This is what you give me? This is what you think I'm into? I've never in my life been so humiliated and insulted. Behind that is the Tower. Behind that is the Sun. Behind that is the Emperor. Behind that is justice. Behind that is death. Behind that is the world. Behind that is karma. Behind that is the moon. And behind that is the Knight of Pentacles. But behind the Knight of Pentacles is the High Priestess. And behind the High Priestess is the Seven of Cups. The Tower, the Sun, the Emperor, justice, death, the world, karma, which is judgment, and the moon. That's a lot of majors behind this Eight of Pentacles. Oh, wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 major arcana for each pentacle in this Eight of Pentacles. This is like, these are major things these are major things. Oh, look, we have the sun, the moon, and the eclipse in karma. These are all like major lessons. And like, if that's what the Four of Pentacles is working on, or if that's what the Four of Pentacles, it's like, it's for a good reason type of energy. Like the Four of Pentacles knew what they were doing when they didn't give. So it's almost like rejection is God's protection type energy on a grander scale. It's like something was not, it's almost like it wouldn't have worked. So I don't know if that is to remedy nostalgic, like Six of Cups type energy, where, you know, you get to a certain point in life and you grow a little nostalgic and you start to think about things of the past and like, if I would have done that, or if I would have done this, or like, is there anything that could have been done to get this to work out or to play out differently? And the answer is almost no, because there are so many things that had to happen. But with like the Knight of Pentacles and the High Priestess, the King of Wands is right there. Behind the King of Wands is the Hermit, and by the Hermit, behind the Hermit is the King of Pentacles. Behind the King of Pentacles is the Knight of Cups, and then we got the Four of Swords and the Knight of Swords, the Fool, the Lovers, the Empress, the Three of Cups, Two of Pentacles. Okay, lots of like court major energies. But it's like it was always moving forward. Because it's the Knight of Pentacles, it may have taken us longer than we thought, or we may feel that we've missed an opportunity because of how much time has passed or gone on. But again, with the Knight of Pentacles, it's slow and steady. And with these 8 Pentacles corresponding to the 8 majors of like the Tower, the Sun, the Emperor, Justice, Death, the World, Judgment, and the Moon, like, and there's a lot of like later between the Tower, the Moon, the Sun, uh, between the Tower, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and the World. Tower, Moon, Sun, Judgment, and the World. That's 5. 5 out of 8 are like later majors. And then the mid majors are Justice and Death. And then the only early major card is the Emperor. Like a lot of concluding energies. Or realizations, I guess. Well, both. Anyway. And again, maybe that's just like symbolic of representative of because how many planets are retrograde at, I guess there's what, how many planets are there? I feel like there's 9, but it might be 8 because the Sun and the Moon, you got Mercury, Venus, Mars, Neptune, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto that can retrograde. You have the nodes that are always retrograde. So out of those 8, only Mars is like firmly direct through all of this. And people like to sleep on Mars, so. But it's almost like if there's one planet that's going to make sure things go whatever, if it isn't Saturn, it's Mars. Mars, you just got to like, depending on your relationship with Mars, it's like, okay, is this going to be productive? What's going to happen? Is this going to be productive or destructive? But that was the thing about Mars and all of those aspects to Saturn, and how Saturn provided, at least on this channel, the astrological story, the read and the feel of the astrological energy was that in all of those aspects to Mars, and while Mars was in Capricorn, basically in Saturnian energy or aspecting Saturn, Saturn was providing Mars with a framework in order to productively do a whole bunch of stuff. And it's like everybody else would write off Mars as like a nuisance or an annoyance or the one that goes in and like ruins everything because Mars does way too much or blah, 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 whatever. So like bloodthirsty and war hungry that it can't, whatever. But Saturn was the one that was providing Mars with a framework to engage productively and positively. And it's the new Mars, that productive and positive Mars, that has the capacity, the capability, more so, to like really drive it home. Like Mars has that much energy. Mars could do it. At least Mars in some skies. So, energy oracle cards. Oh, that did not go together. All right. Final card, please. Final card, please. Attachment at the bottom of the deck. The Temple Path is a card that came out. The Temple Path is a card that used to come out all the time. I don't use this deck super often anymore. I want to get one more. Like I want to get one more because I don't want to leave attachment at the bottom of the deck. Let's see what's behind attachment. Strategy. There it is. Oh, and the thinking woman. I gotta take it. Victory is behind that. So I gotta take strategy because strategy is number 21. 12, 21. We got the mirrors. And behind that, 4 plus 7 is 11. I was thinking it was kind of 12 for some reason because I did the math wrong in my head. But there's a thinking woman behind it. And regardless, because of attachment and strategy, like it feels like it's so thinking woman energy. Attachment and strategy is interesting. It implies a certain rigidity. And attachment and the temple path, it feels like it can be interpreted or taken in a very rigid way. It feels like the temple path is winding. The temple path isn't necessarily straightforward. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. The temple path isn't necessarily straightforward. The temple path is winding. But it feels like in our humanness, a lot of times we can approach it as if it is or are or were linear. And it feels like that attachment is with this strategy as well. But it's almost like it's one that doesn't necessarily accommodate for present circumstances, situations, and the ways that scenarios and situations are evolving and unfolding. The temple path does because the temple path curves and winds just as life does. But if we follow it, it will always point us in a direction that is progressive. And so maybe it's a time or it's going to be an opportunity to, I am going to get another one. It may be a time or opportunity for us to get clear on There's a healer of the ages. To get clear on our beliefs in a way. Or it may show us like the rigidity of our beliefs and whether or not they're almost like outdated, or whether or not like they can account for or accommodate for the complexities that we face at whatever junction. Financial constraints flip over, but I ain't taking it. Second chakra archangel Ariel is here, number 36. Bottom of the deck is fourth chakra archangel Raphael. Raphael and Ariel are here, and behind Raphael is number 50, the angel of strength. So we get the sacral and the heart chakra. That's creativity, and that is the heart. Earlier today, I was thinking back on it wasn't Prophecy 3. It was recently when I came on and I was talking about that show that had the prophecy in it. And was it the same reading that had the heart chakra? No, yeah, it was first it was the solar plexus and the third eye, and then I was using the dice. And then it was the heart chakra and the crown chakra. And it was like, when the heart is on, there are certain things that would never be done. But also, it's like the state of the heart determines the frequencies and bandwidths that we're able to tune into with the crown chakra. It's like before Ebenezer Scrooge, before he was visited by the three ghosts Christmas, like if he was told to donate money, he never would have done it. Or if he was told to give money to somebody, never would have done it. After the three ghosts Christmas, yeah. If that's what his intuition is telling him to do, he'll do it. And then there's an opportunity for that money to multiply and be returned manyfold. But it was more specifically like I was thinking back on that show that I was watching and the prophecy that was revealed in it, or how the prophecy ended up playing out. And the prophecy ended up playing out in a way where one of the ones who would maybe consider himself a hero. Well, he set out to be the hero of the prophecy, but he became the villain because of the things. It's like if you have to kill your brother and murder other innocents and turn on the people who were like supporting you. It was just like, it's one of those, like an open and online heart would never have done those things. It doesn't matter what the stakes were. But because things worked out the way they worked out, the prophecy was fulfilled in the way that it was fulfilled, where he died as the villain rather than living as the hero that he wanted to be. But again, it was just like, it's almost like, at what point, because the heart chakra and the sacral, I was like, why am I even talking about this? It's like, at what point are there lines, I guess, that we don't cross? And also, at what point are we able to put our own self aside to truly see another or be there for another in whatever way, shape, form, and capacity it is for us to be? Right? And again, it's just like asking for help, let's say. Like, let's say that, because again, this is the sacral and the heart. So like, let's say that there's something that we need, that we are struggling to fulfill ourselves. It's like if we ask for help, we can get it. But depending on how we feel about like reaching out and asking for help, if we can't reach out and ask for help regardless of the reason why, then it feels like it makes a situation a lot more dire than it necessarily has to be. So it puts a lot more pressure on us, makes it easier for us to justify doing something that doesn't necessarily feel resonant or it doesn't feel great. But because we believe we don't have any other choices, we do it. And it's like, that's nothing. Like, literally, you could have asked for help. But again, it feels like that plays into a little bit of that, like, whatever the interplanet retrograde was, our ability to see it, witness it, handle it, face it, address it, incorporate it, and move forward in a way that honors that. There we go. So that's what I got. I'll pull a Star Dragon to end it because I've been looking at him and I want to use him. Give me one moment though. You see that? I need to get my hair retwisted. Like, it grew so fast this time. I don't think it usually grows this fast, but oh well. Do. This band actually broke. And I feel like with the band broken, I can actually do things with it that I kind of wanted to do when it wasn't broken. So take that as however it resonates. So, Star Dragons, to conclude everything. What Star Dragon wants to come out and co-sign this message or seal the deal, conclude it? Oh, a dragon I haven't seen yet. Guess what number dragon it is? This one is one that I have seen, returning, going with the flow. Y'all remember this dragon? Number 15, Tranquility. 15 was the shadow side before. Now it's Tranquility. And it is harmonious in action. So we got harmonious in action and going with the flow. Kidding. We have harmonious in action and going with the flow. And that's orange and purple, giving sacral and crown vibes. That heart being the bridge that I mentioned when it was the heart and the sacral. So let's see what tranquility is all about. Oh, open right to it. But that is not English. It's looking like Italian. Or maybe Spanish. It's not English. I could read it, but I wouldn't know what it means. So, tranquility, harmonious in action. I'm just going to hold it like this. Because constellation is Corvus, the crow. The star is Gamma Corvi. Wisdom of the Herald. Sometimes the best action is inaction. It's time to wait things out. Smell the roses, recline, sit down, and surround yourself with the comfort of trusted allies. Find harmony and stillness in reflection. The situation will ultimately work itself out. Breathe. Wisdom of the Dragon. Peace and tranquility are yours if you want them. Earn your sense of wellness and harmony by actively engaging in the practice of stillness. Take your time. A solid foundation within and a quiet temperament are invaluable for you right now. Seek ease, healing, peace, wisdom. Peace be with you. Star Dragon incantation. Now is not the time for action, but inaction. Achieve your harmony by staying still in a world that otherwise rushes consistently. Break away from the fray to engage in harmonious inactivity. Find peace and tranquility. The world can wait a while as you restore your faculties. Find peace. What is interesting about this is otherwise. It was that word otherwise. Otherwise is interesting because it's like, is it the wisdom of others otherwise? Or is it otherwise in a way where it's like, it would be typically wise to do this one thing, but because the situation is what it is right now, it's wise to do something different. Otherwise, and other wisdom. But so like that was harmonious inaction. Because I'm biased, would be tempted to say it may be a harmonious action because the key to that harmonious action in the invocation was that the world was moving. So when the world is moving, then it's finding harmony and being still. But if the world is still, then it's finding the harmony and moving. But a lot of that wisdom probably would have gained. It's like the wisdom would probably have been gained in a harmonious inaction while the world was in motion. Because when we're still and when we can sit in a space of observation, it's easier to notice what something may need. And then maybe when it slows down or it stops, we can go around and give it, right? So anyway, thank you, Holly and Peter, for stopping in. I feel like there was something else I was going to do, but it's fine. I hope you all have an amazing whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, what you find. And I hope that your retrograde season, as Jupiter joins the fray and Mercury and Venus eventually go direct, is whatever you need in your own personal life. I hope you the capability and capacity of doing, right? Because the more happy and fulfilled people out there, the better the world is as a whole, and the better we can be to each other and for each other.